What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Talkative. I'm your host, Jason Martinez, and today, ladies and gentlemen, for episode 5, first guest episode of the show, and I'm joined here with one of my good friends, Marc Legal. Marc, want to give a word up?
Hello.
Introduce yourself. Okay, ladies
Hello.
and gentlemen. So this is my good friend of mine. We've known each other for quite some time. He's been wanting to get on the show for quite a while now. And the choice of topics, very interesting topics for today's show. In fact, very intriguing. But let me just give out a little bit of disclaimers, a little bit of notice before we begin. Every topic that we discuss in this episode for the next 45 minutes or so are just going to be straight facts. Nothing in political views. We're not picking sides politically. We're not trying to spark any controversy. Straight facts. Just a normal conversation about these topics. So we're not trying to spark anything or give out political views or bring negativity for this episode or for the show. So just a quick disclaimer there. And okay, you know what, Marc, since you're the guest, I'm probably not going to do a lot of the talking for this episode. But if you want to start off, go ahead.
Well, it depends on what do you want to start talking about.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. But before I say what the topics are, like where you're from and such.
I was born in Austria. I'm half Austrian, half French. Pretty much my interest is lying in either mixed martial arts, the current political state everything is going towards, or the basic history of our human nature, or psychedelic drugs. That's pretty much me summed up in a bucket.
All right. Thank you for that, Marc. So you told me weeks prior that the main area of discussion for an episode with you and I would be parts of the Second World War. And you told me specifically Blitzkrieg, the Battle of Dunkirk, and the end of Vienna. Now, you also told me that you have a few stories that you could shed some light on for this topic. So this is all we're going to get into for today's episode. And starting with, I just want to give a few pointers for some facts. I was doing research on the Battle of Dunkirk, and I found a few interesting things. But just to give a little explanation. Tell us what the Battle of Dunkirk was and the impact that it brought during the Second World War.
Well, basically, when Germany declared war on every other country in Europe, the Allies, pretty much Britain and France, were like, fuck, what are we gonna do? What's gonna happen? France decided to go on to the defensive side. And they pretty much put a whole massive army across the border between Germany and France. What the French didn't account for was that the Germans, pretty much high on patriotism and with immense good training, you cannot deny the German training was impeccable, if that's the right word to use. The SS or all these armies were trained in a very professional way, and I'm just trying to make myself sound professional in a way, because my English is pretty rusty.
Listen,
I haven't spoken English in a very long time.
Listen, it's fine. Be professional, but just be you at the end of the all. So don't worry about it. But I just have a few questions.
I gotta smoke some weed to calm down first.
Hey man. Go ahead. If that gets a little bit comfortable.
It's legal where you are, so they can't say shit about it.
It is.
So fuck it.
I mean, it is.
And where I am, we don't talk about what the current state of it is where I am.
So just do you, bro. It's all good. But back to what you were saying about training. I was just gonna ask you, what were the specific methods that the Germans trained under?
Well, I can't give you any specific details, but the Germans, one of the main keys they performed on the Blitzkrieg so very well was, first off, the French didn't expect something like that to be just pushed back from the fucking front with pretty much
God.
the largest amount of the German force. And in Germany,
So, Go ahead.
in Germany around that time, they invented a drug which helped the Germans stay awake for a long time, have large. It has a eurythmic feeling, is I believe the right word for it. Which nowadays,
what was the drug? What was it made of?
Exactly what it was made of, I don't know, but what it is called nowadays is called meth, pretty much.
Oh, so it was a form of meth to keep the Germans awake.
Well, yeah, pretty much. It was pretty much meth. They were on meth.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was actually like a problem at the end of the war, because guess what? Yeah, meth at the beginning is gonna be fun, but once you're addicted to it, 4 years later, that shit is gonna fuck you up.
It's the effects afterwards, like after you have your moment, it's like poof, it hits you like extremely hard.
And the issue with a drug like meth is, yes, it's gonna be feeling amazing for the first time. And I haven't taken meth. I just watched a bunch of documentaries on it. Is that pretty much, yes, you're gonna feel amazing for the first time, maybe the second time, but not as good as the first time. And you wanna try getting that feeling back for the first time, pretty much feeding that addiction. So you gotta imagine what it did to the soldiers, not even knowing what the fuck they were taking.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, even like the effects, even if they're long term or short term. Just imagine being a soldier on the ground, boots on the ground, taking this stuff to keep you awake, to keep you aware, alert, but not knowing what the secondary effects can be. So, yeah, that's tough. I mean,
for days.
That's tough. And how often would a German soldier, any soldier, in fact, that consumed this drug, this meth, how often did they have to take it?
I don't know how often they would take it in the beginning, but I would say if they would take it if they had taken on a regular basis, just like if you would look at it with any substance that can get you addicted to it, it would, well, at the beginning it would be perhaps regulated, but eventually if you would grow addicted to it, you would lose control of it. I guess some didn't take it a lot, and then some took it a lot. I don't know.
I mean, back to your point. I mean, yeah, depending on regulation. If you're on a regulated amount, you only take a small portion of the drug per how many days, then you probably won't get addicted.
But yet again, they didn't know what meth was really back then.
Yeah, so then it gets to the point where you're at this point you're consuming too much of it, and like you say, you're just out of control. And the bad part about this is that the soldiers didn't even know what the drug was, like you said. Yeah. So that's interesting. I didn't know that the soldiers had to take a specific drug to keep them aware, and them not knowing what the drug was. That's tough.
Like the French had to sleep at night. The Germans were awake for 4 days straight, just battling through and through. They didn't care. They felt like God, pretty much.
Yeah, holy crap, dude. But yeah, that's very interesting. And just to go back on the Battle of Dunkirk, it says here on my notes that this was basically a rescue mission of over 338,000 British and French soldiers.
But what pretty much happened was France was overrun by the Germans. So the British had to come in and try to free France before it was too late. But the Germans just overtook France, like pretty much it was nothing. And for the British soldiers to escape, there was the French army, I don't know how many soldiers, defended Dunkirk for the British and other French soldiers to escape in the meantime. And what happened as well was that across the canal, like English fishermen and civilians even went to the beaches of Dunkirk to rescue British soldiers. Okay. So yeah, it was a big rescue mission.
Wow, that's crazy. I find it crazy that it was well over 338,000 troops on one mission being rescued.
It tells you how the Germans took it over that quickly, though, as well. For all those troops.
Exactly. And without getting too controversial here, how, referring back to the Holocaust, right? How Germany was able to, unfortunately, have so many Jew casualties of over 6 million, I think.
Over 6 million Jews were killed in
Over
the
6 million. I mean, that just goes to show the power and just
well,
dominance.
they basically turned killing into an industry. If we're gonna put it
that's
cold as it
way
is.
to put it.
Well,
I'm
just putting it as cold as it pretty much was. They turned killing into an industry. Hitler made it somehow. Well, it wasn't Hitler all by himself. Don't get it wrong. There was a big big hatred, as you could say, for Jews. Well, not a big hatred, but it was always like the distinction. Is that how you call it?
Yeah, to distinguish, to differentiate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Hitler just pretty much fueled that fire. And when there was nobody to blame in the end, there was like, well, who are we gonna blame this financial crisis on? Yes, we're gonna blame it on these people that take the money or ridiculous large prices or control largest amount, like just propaganda, pure propaganda. Gotcha. against the Jewish. And it started off with the Jews having to wear armbands or marks on their clothing, like the yellow star,
the Star of David.
Yeah,
all those symbols and just representation, right?
Yeah, so you knew who was a Jew. And then they would be sent off to own districts in the cities, like pretty much slums. And once it was like a step-by-step situation. Like first they were given the stars, then they were sent off to different districts, and then eventually were sent to those camps.
Also, you know what's funny? I just had a thought that could relate to what we had in U.S. history, right? In a way, you can kind of see this as a form of segregation.
Pretty much, it was segregation.
Yeah, compared to like the 1960s over here in America, where we had schools with just straight up isolation. Like you had bathrooms for white kids, and they have separate bathrooms for black kids. Transportation, for example, everyone who was white sat in front of the bus. Everyone who was colored sat in the back of the bus. So in a way, this is kind of like a calling back to segregation here in the U.S. with Jewish people and the Germans.
And you gotta understand, the Jewish people, that segregation happened in the late 1930s into the 1940s.
Yeah, literally 20 years.
With the black people, it happened until the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a big time difference.
That's the thing I was just gonna mention. Not that big of a time difference between 20 years from those events to the events in the U.S. So cool little connection there.
And history-wise, it's not that far away from us. That's like 80 years ago, the Second World War. 80 years ago, pretty much, Germany killed 6 million Jews, and we don't even know how many people Stalin killed in the gulags. Estimated about like millions as well. You don't know about I think like the civilian casualties, like all the casualties combined. You're talking about in the like multiple tens of millions of the people that died in the war in that time. And there's not an official. You can't be 100% sure exactly how many people died because so many people died.
So many people died, yeah. And especially since a lot of the Jews during that time period, as we know, were contained in concentration camps. And there was probably even more casualties in those camps than we can imagine, right?
Yeah, well, I've been in a concentration camp once with our class for like history. And we walked into a room where there was like full of just plaques everywhere. It was like a room, and then there were like these plaques everywhere, and you just had this small path to go on, and all of these plaques were filled with names, with the people that officially where you knew they died there. And even they said like we can't confirm that was everybody that died in that. concentration camp.
Wait, so you actually went to a legitimate concentration camp as like
Yeah,
a school trip, or?
Yeah, Mauthausen. It's in Steyr.
Oh wow!
It's like
And-
you drive like this through the small village where you expect nothing. Then there's like this tight little forest path, and you go through this forest path for like 20-minute drive, and all of a sudden the forest path ends, and then there's this massive building with barbed wire fences and massive watchtowers and everything. And at that concentration camp, they even had like these massive set of stairs where the stairs were uneven. You know what I mean? Like one was super short, one was super tall, and pretty much what they would use it for is there was like a mine there, and the Jews had to work at that mine, or the prisoners, because it wasn't just Jews in those camps. It was like gays or mentally disabled people. You know what I mean? Like anybody that wasn't fit for the Third Reich, pretty much.
Wow, that's very interesting that you mentioned that. So you mentioned the Third Reich, right?
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate on that? Like explain that?
Well, pretty much.
And how, like, and sorry to cut you off, but how that affected people who weren't Jew or who weren't Jewish?
Well, I can't speak on like how the whole society treated it, but it's scary to how many people supported it. That's the scary part. How easily people just support the fact that, like, yes, it is totally okay that we're gonna hunt these people and we're gonna kill them, and if they're like just Jewish, just a basic different religion, those are people that have to be sent to concentration camps. Like, I have relatives in my family that sold out. Other like my great aunt sold out her what do you call it? Sister's husband, pretty much. You know what I mean?
What?
My great aunt sold out my sister's husband for being a Jew.
Oh wow!
Like that's like they sold,
and all because she supported the Third Reich.
And you gotta understand, there was the Gestapo. The Gestapo was pretty much a secret police where they would go around. They were pretty much looking for Jews. They were the ones like looking for people that tried to hurt the Third Reich, the ideology of Hitler.
Yeah, I've learned about the Gestapo back in high school during history class. These were like not undercover, but very sneaky,
a secret police.
Secret police that worked, that worked in the shadows, you can say, or worked quietly to catch people who were Jewish. So okay, what I got from that is the Third Reich was basically like this like ideology that people follow, like a constitution in a way.
Well, pretty much what Hitler wanted was everyone to be pure Aryan, like the perfect German/Austrian. Hitler was Austrian, but he hated Austria.
Yep.
And he pretty much saw Germany had to be this great nation and will be the world leader. Everything will be the Third Reich. So once everybody is pure white, Aryan, and proud of
blue
Germany,
eyes as well.
Blue eyes, yes. And that would be the perfect country. But for that perfect country, in Hitler's eyes, well, there has to be some collateral damage, if I put it in that fucked up way.
Basically, what you're trying to impose here is that Hitler wanted to impose these ideas, but in a very harsh and vile way.
He wanted to create, in his eyes, the perfect world.
The perfect world, the perfect race, you know?
Yeah.
Which when you think about that, you're like, how can you create a perfect race? You know?
Well, he already, like, pretty much ignored his ideology with his closest of associates. Like, his right-hand man, like, in his eyes, people, only Aryans were blonde hair, blue eyes, muscular. So no glasses, no anything. And his right-hand man wore glasses and had black hair. Hitler himself had black hair. He wasn't Aryan.
And wait, wasn't one of those things that Hitler stated that he doesn't like short people either? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, he wasn't really that tall.
And he wasn't tall, so it's like
He wasn't
yeah,
really
his ideology was just messed up at that at that point.
I don't know how what must have been well, you can know what was going through his head if you read Mein Kampf, but I haven't read it yet. I haven't read Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf is the book that he wrote when he was in prison.
His diary. It's his diary.
His own diary.
Pretty much. What's going on through his head and everything.
I mean, let me tell you something here, bro. When you're a man of such power, when you have such a big following, such a big source of power, at some point, undoubtedly, that power is going to end up going to your head, and you don't know how you can sustain it or control it. You get what I mean? Which is why I think that's one of the main reasons why Hitler took the motive to just take his own life, because he had such a major source of power. Not in a positive way,
that's the next
right?
thing. We don't know if Hitler died.
Oh, why do you say that?
Because for decades, right? That's like 10 years is a decade, right?
Yeah.
All right. For decades, we believed that Hitler's skull was in a Russian museum. And when they did a DNA test on its skull, turns out it was from a 35-year-old woman.
How did that come about? What? How did people assume that was the skull of Hitler?
There was a whole TV show in America about it, like Finding Hitler. Because if you didn't know, in Argentina, there are massive groups of German people. Villages full of German people, speaking German, living like they were living in Germany, because they are all descendant of Nazis. Nazis that escaped, high-ranking Nazis.
That's crazy.
A lot of Nazis escaped to like South America. They found Heinrich Himmler in Argentina.
I was just going to ask you, like, do you know of any particular countries where Germans of any sorts, whether they were Nazis or former Nazis, whatever the case may be, do you know if they fled elsewhere? I mean, you did mention Argentina and South America.
Well, some were picked up. Some were picked up by the U.S. and they started working for NASA.
Oh, okay. The National Space Association.
Yeah, they worked on the rocket. Yeah, like Nazis helped the U.S. with their space programs.
That's very interesting.
And
so,
not just the forced Nazis, if you know what I mean. Like, they didn't have just under quotations good Nazis.
Gotcha. So, well, but yeah, man, that's the crazy part about this. Like you said, like throughout this entire time period, the world was just in the dark black hole. You understand what I mean? Like for the past, how long did the war last? Like 4 to 5 years?
The war lasted 1938 till 1945. 7 years.
Oh, okay. So my numbers are a bit off. But yeah, it's just crazy that here's my take on it. I find it crazy how to this day, 80 years after the war, the events of the war already happened, we're still uncovering mysteries and stories. Just things that we don't know still, even after all that time of the war.
Yeah, like I mean, what a lot of people didn't know, that a lot of money was invested by the U.S. government to find Hitler after the Second World War.
Well, and there's no traces of him in the prison where he was locked up. There's no.
Well, he never was locked up in a prison.
Oh, was it not a prison?
What the official story is that he killed himself in the bunker, took a cyanide pill and shot himself.
Oh, it was a bunker. You're right.
Yeah, he was in his bunker in Berlin, but now with that skull, everything is like, oh, well, where's Hitler then? If that skull was of a 35-year-old German woman. and that was believed to be the skull of Hitler. Where is his body? Was the wrong body burned? How can you mix up the fucking body?
Wow, that's crazy.
And there have been eyewitnesses, but well, you never can really. You always gotta take eyewitness accounts or a grain of salt, especially if it includes Hitler eyewitness reports after the World War. You cannot really take those seriously unless they have evidence.
Yeah, and especially in today's day and age where everything is posted on the blog and in the article online, you can't really just take those conversations to 100%, like with a grain of salt, like you said.
Yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't really matter now because to be alive, to be still alive, he would be like over 120 years old. He would have to be the oldest person alive. So he's dead already, no matter what.
Yeah,
question: did he get to die in peace, or was he killed in a bunker?
Yeah, that's the interesting part about history, is that it's really just a big bubble of mystery. There's no right or wrong when it comes to history,
and a lot of stuff is being kept hidden.
Say it again.
A lot of stuff is being kept hidden.
And yeah, a lot of stuff is being kept under conspiracies and just secrets. Like there's a lot. I mean, dude, we've only discovered like barely any bit of our ocean. There's still 90% of our ocean in this planet undiscovered.
We know more about the moon than we know about the ocean.
And that's the crazy part, and that correlates with history as well.
Like, you don't know what the fuck is down there. We don't know.
Yeah,
could be massive fucking fish down there, like massive.
Hey man, not even fish. Probably creatures that we didn't even know existed. Like
yeah. Did you know in the 2004 tsunami on where was it? 2004 tsunami on some island, I forgot. There was this massive tsunami, and once the tsunami hit, they discovered 40 new species of fish.
Just like right after it hit?
Yeah, because they swam like they were like forced up. They discovered 40 species of fish after that.
Never seen before.
Never seen before, and they're just lying around.
That's insane, dude. I mean, that goes to show like how much in this world that we live in is undiscovered. How much is kept behind, like I said previously, conspiracies or mysteries, and that there's still people out there, historians, people that dig up fossils. I'm forgetting the terms right now, but people who cover this stuff that still try to find traces or solve the unsolved conspiracies to this day. And I just find that really amusing. I mean, to tell you back in high school, history and science was like two of my favorite subjects, and I just find I find a lot of interest and amusement when it comes to history, especially areas like these, like the Second World War, strategies of war, like Blitzkrieg and all that. Like, as I was doing research for this episode, a lot of surprising facts that I found about these topics, and I just say to myself, like, wow, this is like, these are things that people my age don't know plenty about,
No, that's the worrying part. People forget. They don't care about history anymore, and they say, and there's a reason why they teach us history, so it doesn't repeat itself.
Wait. Retrace back to that. We are taught history, so it doesn't repeat itself. That's a very interesting remark. And why do you bring it up?
If you want to look at history, I think it's good that we're trying to teach it so it doesn't repeat itself. But I mean, we had in the first 50 years of the 20th century, the 1900s, we had 2 world wars. We had wars in Vietnam, we had wars in Korea, we had wars all across the earth.
I mean, civil wars,
wars,
revolutionary wars. And I feel like war, to me, is the epitome of political indifference. Like, it's something. Even if it's verbal. I mean, as you know, the Cold War, right? The 1980s, there was no guns being fired. There was no soldiers being killed. It was just a war of political indifference between the Soviet Union and the U.S.
And you know how close that shit was from escalating? How close?
Yeah, you know, like
that shit
you had
really bad
bases in Cuba with like missiles. You know, the Russians had many areas of the U.S., even their own bases, occupied with Cuban missiles, which is missiles ready to be launched. Like, and the scary part about this is that, unlike any attack or any war that's about to start, you don't know when or where a war can begin.
Do you know what's going on in Russia at the moment?
At the moment, I'm not aware, no.
Russia has hundreds and thousands of soldiers surround the Ukraine, and now the whole of Europe is pretty much getting their whole military together because they don't know what's going to happen, and everybody's fearing a war at the moment. Like Sweden, Austria even has soldiers at the Russian border, France, Germany. Like, there's tension right now, really bad tension.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I want to dig deep in like political issues with Russia and in the U.S. because I just wanted to be factual. But you know, the fact that you brought that up, like I told you, any small little, how do I say it, dude? Countries in this world, relations with countries within this world are like a ticking bomb. You don't know how long it's gonna take until this relationship breaks, and then boom, just like that, explosion erupts. Like, it's just one of those things. And as a civilian who lives in a country, who goes through the policies, the laws, the lifestyle, like, you're not expecting a political relation to just implode. And then what's the end cause of it all? War. Or not the end cause, rather. What's the end effect of it all? Being war and millions of people, thousands of people being affected by it. It's just
war is pretty much humanity at its worst. We're gonna put it in like a simple text.
No, I mean that's a great term. War represents the state that humanity is in. You know, I mean, if you want to talk about political differences and people just, you know, discriminating other people and making fun of other people, I mean, this is why I'll be straight up with you. Now that we touch on this topic, this is why I've never been a man of political discussion or like politics, like in the terms of who do I support or who do I give an edge on. I've never been that type of person. Why? Because every time you have a political discussion in today's day and age, it will always end in controversy and argument. Much like what a war is. A war is an effect that is caused by indifference, and that's why politics, to me, is just one of those things that I can't follow through, because no matter what your opinion is or where you stand, you'll always be criticized no matter what. You get what I mean?
I understand you. It's with me over here in Austria, we can't, like, I mean, it's a topic we all talk about nowadays. It's a topic we can't escape, but in Austria, we're currently facing...
the thing, like, hold on, I'm gonna cut you off there real quick. That's the thing, like, this is something that we just have to live with. I mean, politics is something that we have to know of, no matter how much we can dread it, no matter how much we dislike it or hate it. This is something that does bring relevancy because we live in these nations, we live in these countries as innocent civilians, as civilians who just trying to make a living. So politics is important, but at the same time, it's just, you know, the effects of having political discussions or expressing your opinions and the indifferences is what makes politics a thorn in people's sides, you know? But yeah, back to what you were saying.
Yeah, the thing is, we're currently in Austria, what's going to happen starting February 1st is pretty much a vaccination mandate. Like everybody has to get a vaccination. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, with the vaccination again, I gotta keep reminding of this because we're not trying to get controversial here. It's
No, I'm
just
not
all
trying to get
facts.
controversial.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, for the people who listen, you know, because this is a very sensitive topic.
Yeah,
I mean,
just fucking honest.
no. Listen, honesty is the best thing. I just, you know, I gotta keep that straight. That we're not trying to be controversial.
Yeah, of course. Like, I'm vaccinated.
Yeah, like, okay. See, with vaccination mandates, it's just one of those things, man, that you can't, you know, when it comes to satisfying everybody, right? You can't satisfy every single person. So if somebody has their view on the vaccine and if they want to get vaccinated, but other people say no, that the vaccine is necessary, that if you don't get vaccinated, these are the consequences that you will have to serve. It's just one of those things that if people want to get vaccinated, they will get vaccinated for their own good. But if other people have a respectable opinion and a respectable take on the vaccine, it should just be respected. I mean, mandating something is obligating somebody to do something. And that obligation won't get through somebody who has a strong take or a strong opinion, you feel me? That obligation won't get through people who just don't want to do it, you know?
I mean, if you look at it, there's like a split in every nation with the vaccinated and unvaccinated. Like, everybody's at each other's throats.
That's exactly, and back to the whole political discussion, right? It's just one of those things where you just have to respect everybody's opinions. Like, we're one human race, Mark. We're a race. We're one human race that lives in this world. Why can we just coexist? Why do we have to attack people
because
who have a respectable opinion?
People have egos. That's pretty much the downfall where it begins. People have egos, people have greed in them, and that will always stick with humans until the day we stop existing.
Yep. I mean, look, bro. Egos. This is how I see it as, right? Egos and ignorance are two things that kill more than a single weapon. Ignorance for me kills more, gets a lot of people dead than a single handgun, and that's how I see it. And the same thing goes for egos as well.
The way every war starts is that the leaders of a country decide that they're declaring war on another country. That group of people that decide that they are going to declare war consists of like 50 people. But how many people die in the war for those 50 people?
Very valid point. You know, small portion of people want to declare war for probably unreasonable reasons, and millions of other people have to pay the price for it.
I mean,
you know, like,
let's look at like the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was originally a French war because Vietnam didn't want to be a French colony anymore. And when they pretty much defeated the French army, the Americans came in. Where, yet again, like, the French pretty much, or the Allies decided, no, we gotta keep Vietnam as a colony, even though it was a country that could live by itself. There was no benefit. I don't believe there was any benefit in keeping Vietnam a colony. It could have just lived as a free country, but yet again, we still have colonies in Africa of the French. We still have British colonies, so that will never go away.
Yeah, I mean, you know, taking land, or occupying land for your own benefit is my best way to put it is greed in a way, because like you said, Vietnam didn't have to be a colony. It could have been just its own independent nation. But you know, I feel like colonization is still like a pillar when it comes to just obtaining power and just greed in my eyes. I don't know if you have the same thought process or take on that.
No, I mean, fucking look at North Korea.
Yeah.
Like, that's another example. North Korea is the pure example of power, of greed. Because in the end of the day, we all know, everybody sitting at home knows what's going on in North Korea. People are dying.
People can't
just
live in North Korea, dude.
like,
Like,
what I can recommend is, if you want a real good outlook on North Korea, and I don't want to like plug something right here, but Joe Rogan on his podcast had somebody that escaped from North Korea, Naomi Park, and she escaped from North Korea when she was like, I believe, 13, and just like some of the things she mentions she saw in North Korea, like a boy that was so starved that his guts started hanging out of his body because they retracted so far inside, and he was still begging for money, and she just looked at him. Yeah, it was a regular thing for her. She said she didn't feel anything because it's all she knew.
Because it's all she saw.
And dead bodies laying on the street, like on like piles of dead bodies, or rats eating corpses in hospitals, and then those children hunting those rats and eating those rats. Like, fuck. And that's happening right now, as we speak, right now.
Yeah, I mean,
to millions of people.
I mean, dude, this might as well just turn into an episode about talking about many parts of the world, which I'm fine with, because
just shit talk, shit talking, like where it goes, just where it goes.
We're just no, bro. I see this as two youngins expressing their opinions of where the world is at right now. If you ask me, we're debunking everything. I don't see no controversy in this at all. But look, on the topic of shit talking the current state of this world and just how corrupt nations could be, look at where I come from, right? Latin America. That's another area of the world where it's just all types
Colombia,
all types of just controversy and just how do I put it? Just disaster, you know?
I mean,
Colombia, like you said.
Colombia, or even Mexico. Like, there's like a lot of like, I'm not going to say like all the controversies in those countries are drugs, but from what I learned, and pretty much only the themes that I learned in either school or what I taught myself with, because it was interesting to me, was the cartels. Like, the cartels started something off. Like, the first cartel in Mexico, I believe that started in the 80s. But the first cartel in Mexico...
Cartels have been around for a while, so yeah, like around there, maybe before that.
Yeah, and the first cartel in Mexico... Well, not in Mexico, I have a little bit of a brain hiccup right now, hold up.
It's all good, all good.
Alright, Colombia, that's all. No, Mexico, El Chapo, that's where I wanted to go.
Okay. I was thinking El Chapo, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, carry on.
El Chapo wasn't the first cartel, though.
No, but definitely in my eyes, from what I've known, from what I've seen, the most influential.
The most influential man. That is
at least in Mexico, because you have people like Pablo Escobar, who was a man of intimidation and just order. You feel me? Like
Escobar.
Whenever he spoke, kind of relates to what like Hitler was like. Whenever that man spoke, people just stood and listened.
Well, Escobar had bigger dreams than just to be a cartel boss. He wanted to be president.
Here's the funny thing too, Mark.
He wanted to be the president.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that. But here's the funny thing too. If you realize, okay, think of this as like a village as like a villain. What's up? What's up? This is editing Jason here. I just wanted to quickly add this clip in here just to let you guys know that right there, my power legitimately went out mid-recording. So the episode had to end suddenly, but I will have a little 1 minute clip just ending off the episode and explaining what happened. So this is just me editing Jason in the flesh, letting you guys know why the episode was cut off so abruptly. Thank you. Right. So we had a technical difficulty, ladies and gentlemen. My power literally went out mid-recording. So since we already reached a 48-minute mark on the last recording, which by the way, thank you for joining here, Mark. We had a very great ass discussion. If Mark kindly enough, if he wants to rejoin on the show and carry off where we left off, then feel free, be my guest. We can always have a second part of discussion with my fellow friend here, Mark, down the line for future episodes of Talkative. But because of time's sakes, I have to close off the episode here. We already reached 48 minutes in the first recording. Is there anything you want to say before you go? Anything to the listeners or the people who are listening?
I want to appreciate you. I want to appreciate for you having me on, and I can't wait to continue our discussion.
Thank you, man. Much love, much love. And yes, this discussion will continue because due to technical difficulties, there's nothing that's not under my control. But anytime, Mark, you're always welcome back here. And this is not over. We're gonna finish this discussion in a good way. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to episode 5 of Talkative. And no, I usually end these, I like to end these with an interesting disability fact. But due to time constraints, there'll be no disability fact for this episode. I will leave that for episode 6. So thank you for everyone who listened, and you guys take care. Bye.